education. Thank you to the journalists who have logged into the Zoom and to all our listeners and viewers tuned in via the various social and other media platforms. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Our facilitator today is Minister of Health, Mr. Nicholas Steele, the Honorable Nicholas Steele, and he will be speaking about COVID-19 related matters, specifically the hospitality and entertainment industries. He will also be discussing some changes to government's import charges. Minister Steele, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Philomena, and good morning to you all of our viewers, all of our listeners out there. I want to also take this opportunity to welcome you back, Philomena. It's been a while, but good to have you back. Let me first start with the taxes on vehicles. Our cabinet has confirmed and approved the extension on the banning of vehicles over 10 years. We have extended that period, and that date will be now 31st of December. As of 31st of December. This was given consideration based on the fact that we've been going through a COVID period, based on the fact that this has posed many logistical challenges to individuals. So the effective date for the ban on vehicles over 10 years will be 31st of December 2020. In that same sitting, government also, our cabinet decided that we would pass legislation or policies that would encourage the importation of electric and hybrid vehicles. And as such, in essence, what was agreed is that electric and hybrid vehicles will receive a 50% concession on all the import duties and taxes for them based on their CIF. This is expected to take effect from the end of this month. With respect to COVID and Ministry of Health, I want to give an update to say we are pleased in Ministry of Health and Government of Grenada to say that as of today, we have no new cases, no new positive cases, no current cases, no deaths related to COVID. We have the Ministry of Health, its individuals who provide human service, as well as all of our other essential workers, have ensured to date that lives have been protected. The time has come, though, where we also need to ensure that livelihoods are protected as best as possible. And the government does recognize, like other governments around the world, that a focus too much on lives can result in livelihoods being lost. And as such, we have reevaluated our position, our policies. We have taken this time while we have remained safe to look and evaluate other best practices from other countries all over the region as well as the world, and believe that we have found as best as possible measures that can be taken to maintain the safety of our lives, of our citizens, as well as the livelihoods of our citizens. Schools have opened under new protocols. Businesses in general have opened or reopened under new protocols. Agricultural sector has reopened under new protocols. And what we do recognize, the importance of that our agricultural sector is extremely important to us, especially in times like this. Right now, the biggest and immediate potential of our agricultural sector is our local market. And the biggest sector of our local market with respect to consumption of agricultural products would be our hospitality sector. And therefore, in an effort to boost agriculture immediately, while also focusing on the export market, we believe it is necessary to boost our local hospitality sector. Apart from the obvious jobs that the hospitality sector creates and the needed foreign exchange revenues that the hospitality sector creates, it also helps with the development or redevelopment of our agricultural sector. So we have looked at the various protocols that are existing here in Grenada and in other CARICOM countries and regions outside of CARICOM. and have decided to reevaluate. It started with meetings with the current providers within the hospitality sector, not just the hotels, but those in the entertainment sector. I met with the Commissioner of Police, with numerous owners or managers of restaurants and bars in Grenada on Friday at short notice, an invitation that we extended to them. We believe we have found a modality moving forward where these individual establishments can continue to remain open, but maintaining safe protocols. Each establishment is unique, and we are working with each and every one of them, and I want to thank those who, since Friday's meeting, have already sent in their proposals as to how they can proceed under the broad stroke guidelines that we gave them. And we look forward to working with each and every one of them. In essence, it will allow the police and Ministry of Health to evaluate each individual property and make a decision as to the maximum safe number of people allowed in that property based on the activities that the property manager or owner has requested to have. So there will be your A-type activity, B-type activity, C-type activity, where A-type activity can be considered just simple sit-down dining, restaurant or bar. B-type activity may be similar facility, but also has entertainment for games that are being broadcast or so. But I would have possibly be allowed to have additional seating. And then your C-type activity would be the late night establishments that go a little further with respected activities, but not nightclub type activities. So we're working with each and every one of them to allow them to have a clear understanding of the protocols, of the restrictions to each individual establishment. It allows them also to take personal responsibility for the number of people and the type of activities that they will allow in their property, and allows the police and the Ministry of Health to simply monitor and enforce based on agreed upon criteria of activity and quantities. That is one part of it. The other part is to find a way to revitalize our hotel sector. And as such, we are looking at new protocols with respect to quarantine and testing before arrival. And with the objective being to allow as best as possible some more of our hotels to open while maintaining the same guiding fundamental principles, ensuring the safety of the lives of our citizens while maintaining as best as possible the livelihoods of our citizens. So we are working with those individuals, and we'll be making an announcement later on this week with respect to the revised protocols for entry and the revised protocols for quarantine that would make it more seamless and would allow some establishments to open, as well as those Grenadians who are still looking forward to visit or return, that it is more inviting. But still, for those of us who are here, will continue to feel comfortable that we remain safe. Thank you. What I want to say in closing is to use a catchphrase. We have looked at St. Lucia and Jamaica in particular within our region. I mean, we have seen lessons also from Europe. Certain European countries were closed and then reopened, and we see that they have a resurgence. So we have looked at and believe we can appreciate the mistakes, if we want to say that, or the shortfalls there, and what we should or should not be doing or contemplating. We have looked at Jamaica and St. Lucia as well as two countries who went ahead and opened in late July, where Grenada made a concerted effort and decision, collective decision, part of the collective decision of Carriacou, that those two countries would go ahead and open, but we would observe. And after a certain period, we would all evaluate what was done by St. Lucia and Jamaica. What can be said most definitely with St. Lucia and Jamaica? Not a single person working in the hospitality industry was infected by guests visiting. While St. Lucia and Jamaica have different situations with respect to COVID or COVID-19 community spread, not a single person in Jamaica or in St. Lucia was infected by persons coming and staying in their hospitality sector. So those best practices we observe, and we follow the principle. The proof of that something can be done is in seeing or doing it. And St. Lucia and Jamaica have done it. And therefore we are working with them. Now that time has passed and we feel comfortable to look at their protocols as well and to engage them and have similar protocols here in Grenada with the expectation of similar results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nicholas Steele, for your opening statement. I see that we have a number of journalists present. We have representative from GBN News. We have Ms. Linda Straker, and we also have representative from MTV. Are there any questions from the media representatives at this time? GBN, you have a question?
Yes, good morning to everybody. I would like to ask Minister, as it relates to the review of the COVID-19 protocols for persons coming in, could you tell me, would this also regard the countries that would be placed on the different colors, like the red, the yellow, and the green? And what sort of changes you think may occur as it relates to review?
Well, in essence, it will be treating the bubble or Carriacou bubble in one way, and then individuals who are coming from countries with a risk of COVID in another way. There will not be as much focus between yellow and red, and just simply, if you are coming from a country with the threat of COVID, there is a protocol for entering Grenada, which in essence is that there's a requirement to have a PCR test 72 hours before departure from that country, and then there would be a requirement to stay in an approved establishment for up to 4 days. After those 4 days, a second test is taken and would allow the individual, once that test is negative and the individual so desires, the individual can then leave that facility and go either home quarantine or roam with us, live with us as we do under our restrictions and protocols. If an individual does not have a desire to go home to a home in Grenada or to roam with us as we roam in Grenada and just prefers to stay in a facility for 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, and then leave and go back to their home country, that second test would not be required, because they would be staying in a facility where the individuals there are well trained with the proper protocols and maintain the various safety standards, so they come in, visit Grenada, and leave. The second test is required for those who would like to leave those facilities and come spend time in Grenada in general, freely roaming.
My second question, Minister, I know you spoke about these reviews and how it would relate to the tourism sector. Now, is this because the government is concerned that a lot of hotels are still closed and may be in jeopardy as it relates to complete closure or even bankruptcy?
Yes, it is, because the government is always concerned with the livelihoods as well as the lives, not just of the hotel sector, but in general. What I think we need to focus on is the so-called 6 degrees of separation. Our hotel sector is a significant revenue earner for our country, our agriculture and our hotel sector. All of the other businesses within St. George's, there's a direct relationship. As we export, either export our sun, sea, and sand in terms of people coming here to visit, people coming to our SGU, people buying our products. That is how we as a country have money with locally to spend on our other local businesses also. So we need to make sure that we stimulate that industry so that it can restart, that we facilitate that industry, that it can restart while focusing, as I said, on lives and livelihood. So yes, there is a concern that some hotels remain closed, some major hotels remain closed, and that if there is a way, which we believe there is, to allow them to safely open while we as a people still remain safe, and they can conduct business in a new norm, then that is what a responsible government should do.
I think my final question to you in this part is as it relates to the persons coming in. Now, I know presently we have countries like the United States in the red zone having more persons infected compared to some of their populations. I think that is how it runs with WHO. I'm starting to be corrected. Now, as it relates to this new review, would it also, let's say, even if persons come in with their PCR tests, relate to still having them be in quarantine, maybe not for the full 14 days, understanding that some persons may be coming to visit for, let's say, 2 weeks or maybe 3, and it would make sense. Would it also have a situation where persons will still be required to quarantine, but not a full 14 days?
Yes, that is what is being taken into consideration, looking at the practices that have been successful elsewhere, to allow individuals to visit Grenada or come into Grenada with minimal inconvenience while maintaining maximum due diligence and screening for COVID-19.
Thank you very much for your questions, Rena Pear from GBN. Linda Straker, you're up next.
Good morning to you. Hello, welcome back, and
Thank you.
Minister Steele. I have a bit of a question, so I'm going to start from the top. The minister is mentioning of our they hoping to have this new protocol. Minister, can you tell us whether or not this new protocol is in line with the resolution that was approved in Parliament last Friday? And would it require now that we have an immediate amendment with regard to that bubble, because under the schedule some specific countries were named? Would it mean that even before it is approved in the Senate, that we now have to have some added name to that resolution?
No, it would not. It would not. This has been discussed and planned, and the legislation that went to the lower house, that we passed in the lower house, is in form with or follows the intentions that we're now announcing here.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. My other thing is persons here who have to leave the country with regard for COVID need to get some tests done. They need to do the COVID test. Can you share with us the facilities that are approved to conduct those those tests?
Well, it depends on the
facilities that are approved to conduct the test, so people can travel
right.
with it.
It depends on the requirements of the state that they're going to. Most of the CARICOM countries require a RT-PCR test, which is done at the general hospital. Arrangements can be made, and the results are usually available between 24 and 48 hours, taking into consideration weekends. So let's say that if one is traveling, you should take into consideration between 24 and 48 hours during working days, regular working days. The test can be done there. There are other institutions here in Grenada that are performing a PCR tests of one form or another, or other COVID tests, which individuals can approach them, private entities, and get the test done there. But it depends on the receiving state. So I know for a fact that most of our CARICOM countries request a PCR test, and the type of PCR test is only available at our general hospital and at SGU, but to the general public only available through our general hospital.
Okay, the reason why I am asking, because in recent time I would have seen some posting on social media where persons would say they would have done it at a private facility and it was not recognized when they arrived in Barbados. So that's the reason why I asked if there is an approved place for persons who need to go, or they can just go anywhere and it's accepted. But you have explained why it is not recognized in some parts. My other question has to do on the announcement of the establishment of A, B, and C. Some people seem to have missed it. What is A, what is B, and what is C? Because by the time you were speaking about the other quarantine, somebody in inbox me asking, what is this A, and what is this B, and what is this C? So for the sake of the general public, can you please explain and give example of what is a facility, what is a B facility, what is a C facility, and what is required of persons who may not even be aware that they have to do that to get approved to go ahead having special events.
Right. The proposal that we put forward to some of the owners, just to get feedback from them, we will be fine-tuning over the next day or two to put forward to the general public at large so that everybody can apply or so. It basically, as I said, is type of activities. So an A-type activity in general is an establishment that has a restaurant or bar that people come and sit down and either have drinks, beverages, or food. And there's a seat or table for all patrons as per the new COVID regulations with respect to the distancing, social distancing, the sanitization, the wearing of masks, etc., by staff and patrons as they enter the establishment. The other type of activity, which is B, is and can be with the same establishment, but it happens on different days or so, is that establishment or other establishments would want to have similar facilities, but they are broadcasting a game or a live entertainment or so that is not going to allow dancing or so. So you're watching a football match, or you were watching Formula One, or you're watching some other event, cricket, CPL cricket or so, and they are broadcasting with the required permissions, etc. or so. That type of activity would allow a little more seating than an A-type activity. And therefore, if the individual entities are applying, they can apply for A and B-type activities. The C-type activity, as we envision it, is a little bit more where there would be louder music. It will go on to longer hours, and may have people who come in their own groups based on the level of music or so, or entertainment. They may dance within their own groups, but it will not be a dance floor where everybody goes there. But in the same way that you can sit at a table as a group and enjoy food, then you as a group may stand in the same area that you are in, that came together and dance together also there. That is what we envision as a C-type activity, and are working with the various establishments to make sure that quite likely such activities can be conducted in a safe manner that would allow us as individuals, we being Grenadians, we being social, and wanting to have release as a group, that we can do so in small groups at establishments. And these establishments can remain open, can remain providing employment, can remain consuming products, and allow things to flow. So those are the three types of activities that we envision within the hospitality sector providers, A, B, and C. Entities or establishments can apply for A, B, and C type activities and get approval, where they will work with the ministry and police, and they would know exactly how many people they can have in their establishment for any one of those activities, and will allow the police and the ministry to visit or monitor based on the type of activity they're having that night. It's now much easier for police and health to come and see how many people do you have. It's a C-type activity. You do have permission to have these type of activities, and you are following the requirements. The expectation is that the owners and or managers will maintain that level of self-regulation as well, and we will be spot checking and making sure that everyone conforms.
Minister, just to add a
just for added clarity,
Linda,
I
bear
know
with me
now
1
I
second.
have been to restaurants
Hold on,
in
Linda.
Korea, and each place I go, I had to take my temperature, they had to get my telephone number, we assigned a special seat, and so forth. Will that be required for persons who will be having C-type activities in group? Does that mean everybody name and contact has to be included in a private, in a book somewhere?
Yes.
Would it require that, or is it a case of persons who just
Most definitely.
going in a group of 20?
Most definitely that would be required. In order for us to safely allow that type of activity, we need to, from a contact tracing point of view, worst case contact tracing, need to know everyone who was there. We're not going to ask, and we're going to respect people's privacy up until, God forbid, there is a need to know on a certain night or within a certain hour or so who was there, so that we can help protect those who were there.
Linda, permit me to ask a question here. Minister, it relates to the previous explanation that you were given regarding the different activities A, B, or C. Now, a proprietor may have permission for all types
Yes.
of activities, but he or she must stick to one particular activity at any given time. They cannot be combined, yes?
Well, there is a possibility of combination. So A and B can be combined together. You can be open with a game being broadcast or so, and also have people eating. And C-type activities you can be. But you need to specify what you are having on that given night so that your patrons can know. You don't want people expecting to go to an establishment and it's an A. That's what they want to do, and that's the environment they want to have. And they get there and they find that it's a C-type activity that night. So that normally happens with establishments. They will advertise and say what type of function they're having on any given night. Those who have varying functions, and those who stick to one type of thing, be it a sports bar or pure restaurant or bar, they stick with that every night. But we've found some establishments do want to have the opportunity to have, as they refer to it, and we know it as events. So we've given them the leeway that they know exactly how many people they can have, what type of events they can promote, and how they need to regulate it. And therefore, we have informed them upfront what we will be enforcing.
Thank you very much,
Minister,
Minister.
just
Now,
an
Linda,
addition to that.
I know we have some other questions waiting, so I'll just allow you one
Yeah,
more.
but it is related to that, please. I wouldn't mind. The last regulation should be expiring sometime this week. Sometime last week, I heard that churches can now have accommodation of 75. Churches, weddings and funerals. Can you confirm that? And can you confirm that this protocol now that is establishing for the hospitality sector is also directly related to the religious community?
Linda, we're working with every single sector, and it is with engaging the stakeholders of those sectors. The intention is to get to as much of normalcy, pre-COVID normalcy, as possible. But it is with the interaction of each individual sector that we find the closest to norm, working with them. So that was done through the Ministry of Religious Affairs and the various stakeholders in the religious community to find what is their acceptable new norm. And the intention, and I'm sure the hope and desire of all, is that we will continually, as we have done in the past, revisit it and see how we can find a little more loosening or a little more understanding or a little more reevaluation of it as time goes on. I think there's a general agreement, particularly from the religious community, that they have taken it step by step. They've done new protocols, and then they've observed, and then we have worked together, and we've gone a little further, and we have observed. So I would expect that process will continue, because it's been working very well, and I want to congratulate the members of the religious community who have been true leaders in that and working with us.
Okay, Linda, I will go to MTV now. If you have any further questions, we'll come back to you after the other journalists present have had an opportunity to ask their questions. MTV, you've indicated that you have questions for the minister. Please proceed.
Good morning, Rachel B. and MTV. I have two questions, Mr. Minister. One is with regards to the vaccination. A release was sent out indicating that government is in talks with international bodies, that is the WHO and PAHO, with regards to vaccinations. Can you tell us where are we with that? And my second question is with regards to the COVID-19 bill. Has consultation started? And following consultation, will the bill be retabled in Parliament?
Okay, with respect to vaccination, yes, Grenada being a member of Pan American Health Organization and WHO, we subscribe to the policy with respect to vaccination, not just COVID-19 vaccination, but vaccination. Once there is an approved vaccination, that it should be accessible for all, should they choose to access it. And I want to stress on that with respect to some of the concerns or anxieties expressed with what we're hearing of a rush in certain places to develop a vaccine. Grenada's policy and the announcements that you have heard are based on the long-standing policy that a vaccination, once approved by the international bodies, and it has to go through the proper and pre-approved and agreed protocols for development of a vaccination. That once approved by the WHO or Pan American Health Organization, that it should be accessible to all nations should they desire to access it. And that is what we're signing on to. It is not that the first vaccination to hit the market that we want access to it. We want to make sure that our citizens, the same way they have access to the yellow fever vaccination, that they have access to measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination, that they have access to all the other life-saving polio vaccination, everything else. It's the same policy, and all we are reiterating is that we want to follow those same policies and protocols with respect to a COVID-19 vaccination if and when it is developed. And you asked about the bill and the consultation. Yes. The consultation that I just spoke about with respect to hotel sectors, with respect to hospitality sector, with respect to religious sector, that is the ongoing process. So before that bill was tabled, the consultations were being had. After that bill was withdrawn for consultations, that is what continues. The expectation is that we as a government and a people will come and find what we are comfortable with respect to regulations, laws, etc. That is why in the House, both houses, the individuals are the representatives. So it is based on what the people want and people require or people request as a government for legislation. So we will find that with the consultation. I have no fear that with respect to COVID legislation, we just passed on Friday in the lower house, and I look forward to the debate and hopeful passage of the bill in the upper house as well as we proceed. So I'm not focusing on just one particular part of it or so. It is just that we are able to pass legislation that is necessary in any and all areas.
Okay, but following the consultation, will it be retabled in Parliament?
But following the consultation, based on the results of the consultation, we will act accordingly. If consultation says that we should take it in parts, then it will be done in parts. If consultation shows that it's ready to be retabled, then it would be retabled. And I also always have to be aware that the COVID international situation is ever changing. The consultations may proceed to within a certain time frame or go so long in a time frame that hopefully such a bill would not be necessary. That is also my hope that as time goes on, we would most definitely only need a watered down version or maybe not need a version at all of this, because we would have passed most, if not all, of the hurdles with respect to COVID-19. So I can't say that it will or will not be tabled. What I can say is the consultations are being had and the positive effects of the consultations are being felt.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for your questions. Minister, for your responses as well. We have Anisha Samuel from the Grenadian Voice newspaper. Anisha, you may proceed with your questions.
Good morning.
Morning, Anisha.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning. It is latest that for the physical distancing from schools and churches is now down to 3 feet. So is this part of new protocol, new research, and what is the rationale for the change?
I'm not hearing her.
Anisha, we were not able to hear you clearly. Can you Okay, I think she has posted the question in the chat. So in the absence of good audio, I'll just read her question from the chat. She says it was noticed that for churches and schools, physical distancing is now down to 3 feet. Is this part of the revised protocols or new research? And what's the rationale for the change?
Yes, this has been based on the enforcement of the 6-foot requirement. We believe, and I think most of you will agree, it also depends on the type of activity occurring in the confines of the establishment. We still believe that you should maintain 6-foot distancing. We do recognize that in certain establishments and certain types of activity, it is either necessary or can be allowed a consideration of 3-foot distancing. Some have been obvious from the get-go. It is impossible to maintain 6-foot distancing in public transport. So we have made allowances for that because we cannot carry on life without public transport. We see that the type of activity with respect to church and schools, you can allow a 3-foot. Because both students are sitting down, learning, receiving a lecture or tutelage from teachers, and with churches, people go there to receive the homily and the mass. With respect to restaurants and bars and so, no, because people go there, sit. There are various people coming in and out at any given time. People are being served food, beverage, etc. there. People are leaving and moving to restrooms, maybe to the bar, maybe to other parts of the area and so. So no, we want to maintain a 6-foot distancing there. So it is more of a drill down into the specific types of activities occurring in the establishment, whether the establishment is a church, a classroom, or a restaurant, or an office, or a bank. Then we can see how accommodating we are. Our desire is to protect, but to try and be as accommodating as possible, and there's no cookie cutter method across the board that works for all.
Anisha, do you have any other questions? I think we may have lost Anisha, but GBN had a follow-up question. Rena Pear? Rena, are you there? You can proceed with your question.
I have just 2 follow-up questions. Minister, I'm going to be following up a question Linda Stricker spoke about as it relates to the reviews that you were speaking about, the COVID-19 protocols. I know you said that persons would have to bring in one of the decisions would mean that persons would have to give their test results. Now, is there any way that government will be able to verify that these test results are valid? Since some protocols will be changed, is there any way, or is there a specific health facility they would accept these tests from? And also, as it relates to the number of persons coming into the different business places, the A, B, and C arrangement, would it be based on the facility or the restaurant, how big it is, as it relates to the number of persons that would be able to come in and be part of the event? And what is the largest amount?
With respect to the testing requirements for entry into Grenada, yes, we are very specific with the type of test, and that type of test is only available at certain institutions in those countries. There is an international health regulation, and certification in any and all countries that certifies labs. And we have, with those test results coming in, it is based on certified labs, hospitals, etc., that are authorized to give those type of tests. That is why we request the actual test results on the certificate from the establishment to be sent to us either in advance and or that the individual travels with it so that we can inspect it on arrival. And we still exercise, as you can see in the documents that are filled out for someone to enter to Grenada, we still have the right, should we have concerns or query the test or the test results that the individual has, to test them either at the airport or while in quarantine.
You didn't answer the question as it relates
with
to
respect to the size, and so yes, it is dependent on the size and the makeup of each establishment. How much is open air, how much is air conditioned, and so yes, there will be varying amounts for each establishment. It's based on the size of its establishment, and where size allows a larger amount of people, then we are giving that consideration. And where it is more outdoor than indoor, there is, again, additional consideration given. The main objective, though, is that individual owners or managers must be able to show that they have mechanisms in place to control the size of crowd. If they're given permission for X number of people, they need to show and hold themselves responsible to the police and Ministry of Health that they have measures in place to keep the crowd, that the crowd will not exceed that amount, and that those measures are in place to prevent the crowd from exceeding that amount.
Minister, I know that there's somebody else who wants to ask a question, but I have one more question for you. Now, there's a situation with persons stuck in certain countries like the U.S., Grenadians wanting to come home, overstayed their visa more than 6 months or whatever time they had scheduled for. Now, a situation has arisen where persons are complaining that they would book a flight on a certain airline, and then every month the flight they would just cancel all the flights and say that it might be available for next month, and they would like to come back home. They are ready to do anything the Ministry of Health is requiring to ensure that they're back into their home country. Is there any way government would be able to assist in that regard?
Well, we have been assisting and accommodating as best as possible. There have been charter flights that have been coming out of some of those destinations, and our missions have been working hand in hand with whoever has been providing those flights to facilitate as best as possible. But that is the reason why we're trying to find this protocol that I'm speaking of now, because this will allow the regular scheduling of flights into Grenada. Our traditional American airlines, JetBlue, British Airways, etc., Air Canada. Now, Air Canada was coming, and then Air Canada said that they didn't have enough load out of Grenada to justify the regular scheduling, and that is outside of our control, which is the Canadian government still requires every individual entering Canada to quarantine. So it is the same quarantine measures that we have here, where we said Canada has had success with their quarantine, we have had success with our quarantine. We now say that based on the level of infection that we saw previously in Canada, that we would allow individuals to come from Canada directly to Grenada with a more laxed protocol or relaxed protocols. The Canadians did not move their quarantine requirements, so it wasn't enticing for individuals. So Air Canada, no matter what we did to welcome them, and Canadians or Grenadians in Canada, Air Canada said it wasn't worth their while because of a Canadian government policy. So we have, through Foreign Affairs, been communicating and do hope that if and when, that is the Canadian government's prerogative, if and when they change their quarantine policy, then we would expect, based on our track record and no community spread here in Grenada, that people would be allowed to move back and forth with a more relaxed level. With respect to individuals in the United States, we continue to monitor there, and as I said, we have facilitated charter flights, and we have facilitated daily individuals are coming into Grenada from the United States, coming into either St. Lucia or Barbados or St. Vincent that have direct flights. We took a concerted decision. We made a decision that we would delay that and see how it worked with other countries, and that is why we're now seeing on observation now. We like and appreciate what we're seeing from St. Lucia and from Jamaica with respect to individuals coming in, and we believe that we can move towards a similar system that would allow the regular flights. At that point, it will be much easier for individuals to come in to Grenada under the various protocols. So those who may still be stuck there that haven't been able to get those coordinated charter flights that were coming in and haven't been able to use one of the other flights, regularly scheduled flights into St. Lucia or St. Vincent or so, would be able, my hope is in October, as the airlines have told us, that they would be able to come in October.
Okay, Rena, thank you for your questions. Let's go back to Linda Straker quickly for 2 follow-up questions, and then we'll have Callisto Faria after that. Linda?
Yes, thanks. My other question has to do with, again, COVID. Minister, in the earliest days of COVID, one of the things that we were reported in international media is persons who are using fake documents for results. Since Grenada has reopened, has there been any evidence of persons engaging in presenting forged documents? And linked to that, is there any evidence now, or do we have reported incidents of persons who are skipping quarantine, just leaving the facility without the permission of health officers? And my final question is, we focused a lot recently on COVID, but I am certainly aware that there are other health problems that is out there that is not reported on. So can you share with us, last week we would have heard of St. Vincent speaking about dengue. Can you share with us whether or not we have any ailments, disease, infections that is showing projections based on your data from your health facility?
With respect to false test documents or so, no, we have not found anyone with false documents. What we have got is individuals with the incorrect type of test or so. And they would have had to have been retested either before departure or on arrival. Individuals trying to skip quarantine, yes. We continue to have individuals testing, pushing the system. And to date, we have been able to either prevent or stop those individuals in their attempts to breach quarantine. That is not an issue unique to Grenada. It is in most of the Carriacou Islands. The reports that we are getting and those who are allowing tourists and have a more lax or relaxed system, that it is the returning residents, our own citizens, who are trying to go meet their families or trying to attend functions, and so during the whatever is the quarantine or restricted movement period, that is occurring most, and that the individual who visits to stay at a hotel simply does that, visits, stays at a hotel, and leaves. So yes, we continue to have people trying to push, test, or breach the quarantine system. And your final question with respect to if there are any other infectious diseases like dengue or so going on, yes. All of the OECS we've seen an uptick in suspected, and we have also had a couple of confirmed cases of dengue in Grenada, as we do each year around this time. We have monitored that and have been testing people who have shown up with the symptoms, and we have started the fogging previously and will be increasing the fogging. But again, as we say every year, it is not just the fogging. We get communities and individuals making requests to say that they want the ministry to come and fog because they have mosquitoes in their area. It is significant for us to understand and appreciate we are the ones that are breeding the mosquitoes. The fogging can control or reduce the level of mosquitoes in our various areas, but it is for the individuals to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes by removal of litter and receptacles and possible breeding spaces around their areas for us to prevent that, and also the wearing of repellents and so. But to answer your question, yes, as it is rainy season, in the tropical area, in the Carriacou OECS area, there is always the threat of vector-borne diseases. This year we are seeing the presence of dengue throughout the region, including Grenada.
Minister, I have a somewhat related question here from the Grenadian Voice. She says she has posted in the chat. It is my understanding that in recent months we have had a few deaths linked to heart attacks and strokes. Knowing that blood clot is a side effect of COVID-19 complications, are we testing for COVID-19 during autopsies, knowing that persons can very well be asymptomatic?
Well, I'm not sure if testing during autopsies, but on entering the general hospital, if there's any suspicion, then persons are tested. We've got to be very careful, and what we do monitor is if we see any spikes or increases or any suspicious activities or so. So a heart attack on its own is not necessarily something to say that it is COVID related. We are very much aware of the findings in countries that have had wide community spread of COVID-19, that they have seen an increase in strokes, heart attacks, etc. We do not have community spread of COVID-19. We monitor, and we have been doing widespread testing within the community, including individuals entering our health centers and so. So our doctors have been doing the required screening. If at any point they believe that somebody should be screened because of their heart condition or blood condition, they are screened.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. Callistra, thank you very much for your patience. You may proceed with your questions.
Yes, when I'm dealing with you, patience is all I have. Good morning, Minister. I have three questions. The Minister of Education said at a recent news conference that temperature checks was not part of the protocols for students returning to school, but that she would consult with your ministry to see if there was any advice on that. Is the Ministry of Health going to be advising, or do you believe that it's not necessary to have temperature checks at the schools as part of the protocol?
I think it would be an added measure, but not necessary. No, I agree with the Minister with respect to our schools, our persons coming in or so. The temperature checks are not necessary. I would like to work with the Ministry, and I have told the Minister, we've had that conversation, to implement it as best as possible there for the students, but it is not a necessity. It's not a necessity in entering most of our establishments. We use it within our hospitality sector, but in entering most establishments here in Grenada, the requirement is for the masks, and as such, it would be the same for the schools. As a caring government and being proactive, if it is possible for us to increase that level of screening, we will. And that's what the Minister and I have agreed to do, to see if it is possible and practical to increase that level of screening, then we will do so. But the idea is, in the same vein, to find what is necessary to protect lives and what is necessary to protect livelihoods, and if the temperature screening in schools becomes too evasive or traumatic for our students who are practicing the healthy protocols, and their parents are as well, then it may not be necessary at the time.
My next question. Can you tell me whether or not Grenada has or is considering privatization of any aspect of our testing for COVID-19? And let me just get the other one out of the way once, and you can answer both. And tell me the status of our treatment centers for COVID-19? I know we had one established just down the road from the hospital. Outside of the private block facility that had been set up, what's the status of the other one? Is it ready to go? Should we see a second wave?
With respect to public-private partnership or allowing private labs, yes, there are labs that do testing for COVID right now. There are facilities that will accept individuals in isolation for COVID or suspected COVID, and they have been during the lockdown period as well. So yes, always. Government's duty and a Ministry of Health duty, I think, it is to be a regulator of health services, to be a provider of health services as well, but to allow private providers to provide service wherever possible. So yeah, we would be looking at various measures that could incorporate private entities as we move forward, especially within the hospitality sector or so, for arrangements to be made there rather than us to be using the Ministry of Health personnel. And Ministry of Health personnel will then just regulate and would allow the same Ministry of Health personnel to focus on the other responsibilities like vector control and otherwise. So it would be prudent for us to explore that, yes. With respect to the facilities at the General Hospital, they are ready to go. They are basically mothballed because we do not have any community spread or any requirement to have anyone in isolation at present. But they have been used in the past. Recently, where we had people suspected, we would have put them there pending test results. Test results, thank God, have been negative for any individuals in recent time. But those facilities remain ready to go, to be switched on at a moment's notice. In fact, we use the downtime to actually upgrade them a little more with respect to where we had in the isolation facility that you're speaking to outside of the General Hospital main building. That one, when we first commissioned it, had oxygen tanks at bedside for those individuals patients that may have needed oxygen. We have since spent time to upgrade and are in the process of having the oxygen lines run in a central oxygen dispensing area, sorry.
Thank you very much, Calistro, for your questions.
I have one.
One more? Okay, I'll take one more, Calistro. Go ahead.
Yes. Can you tell me any of the labs and facilities that the government is considering or involved in these PPPs with?
We have two facilities that we have approved for COVID testing. That is Fit for Life and St. Augustine's. They do one or form or another type of COVID testing.
Minister, I have a question in from the diaspora with regard to the app or the tracking device. Is it working, and how and where can it be downloaded or purchased?
The app is available currently on Android or for Android devices. There is no charge for downloading. The link to the app is on the ministry's website, covid19.gov.gd, but I have noticed based on inquiries that it is not as clear as to how to access it on that website, and within the next day or so we should see the site updated, which would allow a better flow for individuals to find exactly where to get the app.
Okay. And one final question here that has come in. You spoke in Parliament on Friday, Canada and Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of revising their categorization. Has any decision been made with respect to those countries yet?
Well, a decision has been made in terms of we haven't changed our status with those two countries as yet. Trinidad remains red. Canada remains considered as green, but the current trend, there are two things we take into consideration. The speed at which a country may be going in one direction or another, increasing cases, as well as the consistency. With Canada, there's been a slow increase. With Trinidad, there's been a significant increase. So I would think I hope not, but by all appearances, the evidence we see with Canada, their current trend, within the next couple of days or so, they would be reclassified into yellow. Trinidad remains in the red zone, but with respect to entry protocols, I mean, that is a Ministry of Health of Grenada classifying countries and country risk. With respect to the new entry protocols, in essence, individuals will be treated the same whether they're coming from a red or a yellow zone country. What we have done is just basically said a risk is a risk, and therefore the treatment will be just about the same.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. I know you've given quite a bit of information here this morning. Is there anything you'd like to say in summary as we wrap up?
Well, just to say that these various protocols, procedures, and this current status or status quo that we have has come, as we are all aware, at great cost, and it for us to continue to enjoy this environment and to benefit from the sacrifices we've made as a nation, we need to maintain certain rules. As has been shown, this government is willing and looks forward to an easement wherever possible of any and all of the regulations. But in order for us to achieve that, we must maintain a certain level of this new norm, the social distancing, the wearing of the masks. I know many people have said to me and are saying out there, well, if we have no COVID in Grenada, why are we still doing this? It is because in order to ensure that we continue to have no COVID in Grenada, no community spread in Grenada, we must do this. You look at any country in the world has been successful in tackling COVID-19 and maintaining the success of COVID-19. It is with continuing to adhere to the protocols. You look at the countries that have been successful at tackling COVID-19 and then lost hold of it, and it's out of hand again, the second wave, so to speak, are those countries that were unable to have or convince their citizens to cooperate with respect to maintaining those protocols. So I'm asking, pleading, imploring for us as Grenadians to do the same. If we maintain the basic protocols, then we can maintain the COVID-free environment. We shouldn't risk the COVID-free environment by not adhering to the protocols. And finally, just to say, as was asked there, yes, we are in rainy season. It is an annual issue throughout the region. The climate that we enjoy with respect to warm all the time does produce rain, and as such produces mosquitoes. There is still Aedes aegypti prevalent throughout the Carriacou region, and we are asking the public at large to do what is necessary to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes around your sites. The ministry will do its part as well. But similarly, with COVID, we won the battle with COVID to date and continue to win the battle of COVID to date because we had a general understanding that we are all in this together and we all have to do our part. It is the same with the vector-borne diseases. We are all in this together and we all have to do our part. It is not the Ministry of Health alone. It is each and every one of us that has to deal with any disease that requires us to make sure that our surrounds, our environment remains safe. So I implore each and every one of you to do what is necessary for vector-borne as well, so that we can remain COVID-free and that we can strive to have a dengue-free season. We do have cases of dengue in Grenada. It is still under control, but can easily get out of hand if we don't all act accordingly.
Thank you very much, Minister Steele, for facilitating this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. To the journalists who participated, thank you very much for your questions. I trust that you were satisfied with the responses and the level of information that was shared here this morning. To the members of the general public, thank you so much for tuning in. We endeavor to keep you informed and up to date of all that's happening within the government of Grenada. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again.
You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you listening on 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Sister Rail Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you that are joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram. A very special good morning to you. And of course, with me in studio this morning, I have none other than my co-host, Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Ms. Duncan, and a very good morning to our listeners out there. It is again another pleasure to be with you this morning. We were here yesterday. We had good conversation yesterday. We were just updated by the Honorable Minister for Health and Social Security, Honorable Steele, on a number of issues, especially as it relates to COVID and what the ministry and the government as a whole is doing. So I think we'll dive into the conversation. So those of you who have joined us, we are happy to have you with us. We are very happy that you can be with us and so be part of the conversation as we carry on today.
Absolutely. And the minister did allude to a lot of things this morning, a lot of things that we definitely do need to take notice of. One of the things, and we are limited for time, so if you find we go in a little quick, it's because we're trying to cover a few things in such a short period. Nonetheless, we'll try to be as clear as possible. You know, you don't want to give too much information and then nobody knows what it is that you are saying. So one of the things that I do want to address quickly this morning, which he did cover in his speech, and it's something that we often say here on Hard Talk, and we often encourage people to do. Before you make an emotional response to something, it's always important to get all of the facts first, hear all of the sides of the story, and make a judgment or have an objective opinion based on that information. So over the weekend, late Friday into Saturday morning, social media, of course, was in an upheaval because people were of the impression that the Royal Grenada Police Force, in collaboration or under the advisement of the Ministry of Health or Government of Grenada, shut down nightlife in Grenada. That was the craze this weekend, that the government of Grenada shut down nightlife. They go and they shut down all bars and tell them they can't operate if they don't have less than 20 people or 20 people and less and all of that. And it was a craze all over social media. Everyone was giving their opinions. One of the nightlife establishments in the Grand Dance area or in the south of the island, they put out a letter stating that they would have to send their people home, and all of that happened over the weekend. And one of the things that I made mention of on social media is that we must often look at both sides of the coin, and that there are always two sides. Well, Mr. Bullet has always said three, but there are always two sides of a story. So here you have the minister clarifying this entire issue, stating that it was not a shutdown. But even before the minister mentioned it, I made it my duty to call one of the very prominent nightlife establishments, their owner. I called them on Saturday just to get clarity. I wanted further clarity on what was happening, and he alluded to the fact that they were given notice. It wasn't a warning or anything like that. It's just that the Royal Grenada Police Force came to them and said, okay, well, here is, what the protocol should be, yada, yada, yada. That same evening, Mr. Bola, they met with the Minister for Health, Honorable Nicholas Steele, the Commissioner of Police, and they also met with, they all bar owners and so on who could have been there, met via Zoom to discuss the way forward. Because, of course, discussion is important. And we always say one of the key things that always has to happen is that the discussion must happen before and not after the fact. Nonetheless, the discussion happened. And they came up with a way in which they can operate, because they were supposed to apply for special license. Most people did not, special permit, they did not, some people did not do that, and so on. And that is what the whole issue was surrounding. Nonetheless, the issue was resolved on Friday evening. Saturday, we saw notices of these places saying that they're open for business and that they continue and so on. You know, and that is why I often say to people, while they're mixing up in people think now they don't understand. You're mixing up in something that you don't understand. People had all sorts of things to say on social media, who cried on the government and cussed them and say they don't want no development, and people stressed out and they need light life and they can't survive without it, and all sorts of nonsense. The government wicked, all kind of things. Yeah, you could imagine people saying they were saying on social media. The same establishment that they were supporting, who put out a letter and so on, quickly retracted, took the letter down, and began making calls to persons that they knew on social media to take the letter down as well. So that is why we often say it's always good to wait. Try your best to dialogue and don't act out of emotion, because most times you're acting out of emotions. You are the one left in the lurch while everybody else sorting out their business, you know? So it's often important. But Mr. Bola, what are your thoughts on this entire issue? Now they're looking at a strategy, a more calculated strategy in which businesses of different categories can operate, because you have nightlife where people come in and they just sit around the table and they eat. You have nightlife where people may be able to socialize, have a little entertainment and so on. And then you have the party goers, those that go out and fit until whatever hour in the morning, you know, and these kind of things. And then the minister did allude to the fact that they had discussions surrounding how these businesses would operate, because as he said, in saving lives, you do not want to affect livelihood.
Well, I don't know if I can say it any better than the minister, and I don't know what more we can say to get people to understand about the issue of fact-checking, verifying before you speak. Speak not out of emotion, but with your intelligence. Yeah. I think it's Aro out of Antigua that said, too much fat never kill a man yet. He sang, there's a song, cancer kill man, AIDS kill man. But certainly, COVID-19 do kill men. Yes. And if you fat too much in a time like this, without proper protocols, you may die. Yes. So Aro and the band may have to rewrite the song or put a line in it. Because when he said, too much fat never kill a man yet, somebody said I could sing yesterday, so I want to sing today again. AIDS kill man, cancer kill man, and COVID will, because it is killing men and women, children too. Yes. Right? Now, I'm saying that to say, listen, from day one, when COVID-19 affected, in fact, when Grenada started its preparation as a country as to how we will deal, what we will do, a committee was set up. People knew what their functions, what their roles were. The police had its role, the health workers had their role, nurses and doctors, you know, allied workers to the Ministry of Health. The ministry itself, with the permanent secretary and other people, they knew what their role was. The immigration officers, the people who work to secure our borders, those who work on the quarantine stations, everyone knew what their role was. But we must always remember what was said, the statement from government, in particular the Ministry of Health and the minister, is that there will be constant review of the protocols. Because the conditions are ever changing. COVID is not static. COVID is new. It's a novel virus. It's a new virus in terms of how it mutates and everything. And there's a lot that is not known. Even at this time, there are still new things, new facts that are being discovered about COVID and how you must treat with them. So it's not a deal that is complete. It's not a done deal, so to speak, right? So having that in mind, or knowing that, understanding that, there will be constant review. That is exactly what has happened as it relates to nightlife and entertainment centers.
Yeah.
The government, the ministry are saying, look, let us review what is presently happening. Things are changing around us. Some time ago, as the minister mentioned, and we found out from the news that Canada, that was seen as a almost safe zone, yellow, more green than yellow, is today ranked towards the red zone.
Absolutely.
Because they are seeing an increase in the numbers. Trinidad and Tobago, we always make mention of them. You know, a couple of weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, they had only a couple. Now they passed 3,000. There are far more deaths. So we are seeing it happening, and based on our experience with COVID, it is not a virus that you just want to let your guard down. You don't want to drop the ball on.
Yeah.
And you know, it aches me a little bit when our people just take to social media and just say things, just print, just write, just type in things without any facts whatsoever. Do the verification, call someone, ask a question. Look, the postcard has just completed. I would want to believe that many of those who labor them out on social media don't even listen.
And
they have not heard a word.
Yeah, you're right.
But they would wait later and look at a post that somebody puts up, and without any verification, just give their own version of what they think the person is saying or what they believe is happening. And so we continue to mislead and misinform people. And that does no good for society. And for the way, you know, we have been appealing to folks time and time again. Whatever you hear, and we have said, even if you hear it on Hard Talk, where we aim to bring factual information to you, where we aim to give you only the truth and what is reliable, please still recheck before you accept or you share. Because we want to be so certain that you don't go out there and cause people to become panic with what you say. And there's no truth to it. And that has been happening from the day, well, even before that. But remember when COVID started, all the stories about the Chinese bring it come here, and the government bring Chinese here to bring COVID. Up till this present day, even with all the numbers that we had in Grenada, not one case could be traced back to a Chinese national or somebody of Chinese origin.
Yeah.
Not one case, even up till now. So why continue? Why can't we be sensitive enough, or sensible, probably is the better word. Sensible enough to check, to verify. And no one is saying, I am not, and I don't think the government wants that, or anyone is saying that you shouldn't talk or you shouldn't make a comment. No. You have that right, you have that freedom, but you also have the responsibility to make sure that when you talk and when you say what you're saying and what you're talking about are factual things. And even when you're not absolutely sure or you don't have all the facts, you can state that. You can state, listen, I am putting up this post because of what I've seen or what I've heard. And I've tried to verify, I've tried to fact check, and I cannot get a correct answer, or I cannot find someone who can give me the necessary verification, the truthful verification. So I'm putting it out here. So if anybody knows better or has the facts, please, can you bring it forward? You know, because you want information, you want people to know. But don't just go about saying things as though you're absolutely certain that what you're putting out is factual, only to find out that all you're doing is spreading rumors. You're rumor mongering. Are you happy with that? Are you happy about the fact that people are seeing your country and the people in your country as people who don't take time to get the reliability of news and to fact check before they speak? Do you like the fact that your poor old granny or auntie or some senior person who already have other complications, reading or hearing about what you're putting out there makes them so panic and frightened that they can have greater levels of anxiety or a heart attack or something? Are you not concerned? Are you the ones who continue to say that you love Grenada and you want to do more? Or is it because you hate the government and the name or the person, Dr. Mitchell, so much that you just couldn't care less about what you say or what you do, so you will continue to just perpetuate lies and fictitious issues? Please, we can do better than that. We can oppose. Of course, that's your right. We can say we dislike. We can say we don't support. But we can do it in a manner that doesn't disrespect each other or create turmoil out of falsehood. We can do it being factual, being open, and dealing with the issues as they appear. And that's all we're asking for people to deal with the issues. But I think the minister was absolutely clear this morning on what the protocols are and what they intend to do and the way forward. And the fact that there's the involvement of a lot of these property owners, a lot of these establishments that does different things as it relates to nightlife and entertainment, and giving people a chance, as they say, to vent and to ease so that the frustration can come out. But you're doing it now with the understanding that in providing economic activities and allowing livelihoods to continue, you can still at the same time save lives. And that is of absolute importance and necessity. So my appeal again is for people to just understand, please, that we need to be careful with what we say and how we say what. We need to fact check. We need to verify. We need to make sure that what we're putting out, when we put it out, it can stand the test of time and not just sitting because it is sensational or because it will raise emotions or it will make people quarrel and cost the government or the ministers, because that's what we want. We don't like the government. We don't like what they do. We've been very successful in our fight with COVID. We've been very successful in comparison to a lot of other countries in the region and outside of the region. But we can only continue to be successful if our people continue to understand that they must not let the guards down, that it is still very, very possible that we can see a resurgence like we're seeing in a lot of other countries, and that Grenada once again can get on its knees if people do not follow the protocols that are laid out as to how we can keep ourselves, our loved ones, our families, and our nation safe.
Absolutely, Mr. Bowler. Because if we look at places like Trinidad is now battling with COVID. I think there are 3,000 cases now.
Over 3,000, yes.
Right? We have places like Jamaica. Jamaica is at also at a little over 3,000, almost 4,000 cases. And we have to look at these places simply because we don't want to scare people into submission. That is never a good thing. However, you must always be reminded, because once you're not reminded, you know what begins to happen? We begin to get complacent.
Yes.
This morning, I'm traveling to St. George, and I'm listening to two individuals on a bus talking, and I'm shaking my head at Mr. Bowler. It burned me not to turn around and say anything, but I say, you know what? Some battles are just not worth fighting. And one of the individuals was saying, I ain't putting on no mask. We ain't no COVID in Grenada. And my children are going to school. I ain't sending them to school because my children are sitting down in school whole day with no mask on. And I said to myself, just the bare ignorance of it was upsetting. Just that alone was upsetting. But I want us to focus mostly, Mr. Bowler, on the fact that there are actually people in Grenada sitting and waiting for there to be an outbreak before they protect themselves. It's like if you put on a condom after having sex, you know.
Is that so?
Yes, man.
Sure.
It can equate to the same thing.
Yeah.
You know? You're waiting for something to happen before you protect yourself. How could that make any sense? you know. And I went to my son's school, and I must say kudos to the staff teacher, the staff teachers, principal at the St. George Seventh-day Adventist Primary School. Yesterday, my son, I went in to have the parent-teacher conference for his grade with them, and I must say that they have a very solid plan. You know, I feel comfortable sending my son to school. He's
So you're
asthmatic.
promoting your son's school now on our program. Okay,
No,
good.
I don't
Free
know.
advertisement, or did they pay you?
You see, it's difficult to promote a school in there because it's if there's space.
Okay.
But I must say that they have a solid plan. They shared their plan with us, and the concerns of the parents whose children are clearly not able to wear masks for the entire day. They have a plan in place for that as well, you know. So it's not as easy as just sitting there and saying, I just send my child to school to sit down with a mask on their face for the whole day. And it's not that, because at the end of the day, it's not you that is being affected, you know.
They said ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. Because in a year's time, when your child has missed out on that, a very important, whether it's 2 weeks of instruction, 6 weeks of instruction, 8 weeks of instruction, it is your child that is left behind. And then you will find someone else to blame for something like that. So we have to, for all of the reasons, you know, for all of the good reasons, sit down and analyze what is not just best for us, how we feel about this government, so we ain't doing nothing they say. But what is best for our children, the decisions that we make, how does it affect them? How it affects our extended family members. When you decide you ain't wearing a mask, and then all of a sudden you hear that on the terminus this morning somebody had COVID-19, and you're wondering, Lord Jesus, did I pick it up because I didn't have on my mask? I didn't sanitize my hand. I went in a bus and it had 40 people in the bus, you know? And then you are now afraid because why? You did not follow the protocols because you were waiting for something to happen before you even decided to do that. You know, it's like, what is it, putting the cart before the horse?
Yeah.
Putting the cart before the
horse. Or bolting the stable after the horse is gone.
After the horse is
Putting
gone.
on the condom after you finish having sex. That's a good one. You know, it's sexy too. But here's what, you know, we need to take a closer look. I mean, there's the word responsibility means a lot to some people and means nothing to others. So there's personal responsibility, there's collective responsibility, there's social responsibility, there's national responsibility. So the government of the day has national responsibility to put the particular protocols and laws in place that they believe, from being expertly advised by those in the health sector and so, that can protect the nation nationally. Yes? Your parliamentary rep, your pastor in the church, the principal in the school, they have sectorial responsibilities for the sectors that they deal with. So, you know, every parliamentary rep now must get down to the various constituency and pass on what is going to happen nationally. We have to filter down to the constituency, and then the leaders of the various villages and the groups in the village have to then bring it down to the level of their people. So you have the priests and the pastors and the elders in various churches. Their responsibility is not just to hold the Bible and say, let's prepare for the coming of Christ. They must do that. But they must also advise people based on the fact that a pandemic is around. And then the schools, as you said, the teachers, the principals, they have their plan. They have to make it known to everyone what they're doing in every situation, what would happen. The medical fraternity. So you go to the doctor, they would have, I've seen going to my doctor's office that they have these posters, the paraphernalia are up talking about COVID, about prevention, what we should do, wash hands regularly and what have you. And then there is the personal responsibility.
Yep.
Because even though all of that is said at every level and individually, we do not take that responsibility to act on the information that is given to us, to spread it within our family, to get our children to understand that it is necessary and it is important, so that we can keep our country safe, that we can continue to remain COVID-free. Then come on. who must do that for us. You know, I sometimes wonder, as adults, when we behave in a particular way, do we ever stop for a moment and ask ourselves, am I making any sense with what I'm doing? Am I a role model for my children or for the children in my community? Am I doing the things that when my children hear about it or sees it, they can feel proud of me as their father or their mother or their auntie? My nephews and nieces can jump and put their hand in the air and say, yeah, this is my uncle or my auntie that is doing this, that is advocating that. Do we ever stop to think about that? We have personal responsibilities, not just for the individual, but for those who look out and look up to us.
Of course.
So when we talk about, well, I ain't wearing masks because there is no COVID, what do we think the younger ones who are listening to us will say?
Yeah.
I mean, if we continue to behave that way, I am sorry, really sorry for where we will be. And most of these people who decide not to obey any protocol, not to act with any sense of responsibility, are the very ones that you would hear most times complaining about government and doing this, and government and doing that, and government not giving this, and government not giving that, and government should be doing this, and government should be doing that. What should you be doing? What should you be giving? What should you be saying? How should you be acting?
Yeah.
There's never a time when I, as the individual, have or will take responsibility for any action whatsoever. It is always passing the buck on, blaming another person, blaming the government, blaming the teacher, blaming the principal, talking about the health system. And of course, all of those systems and all of those individuals, all of us can do better in whatever we do. All of us can make amends to what we're doing. All of us can perform at a higher level because we need to continue to assess ourselves time and time again and look at where we have shortcomings and how we can improve on it. And that's exactly what the Ministry of Health is doing, you know. Looking at the protocols that they have in place and constantly reviewing it and seeing, as the new word is, what greater easement they can bring, so that life returns to a greater normalcy for our people. But it must be done in a structured way, step by step. But I guess from the behavior of some of our people, they believe, well, look, man, things can just go back to normal as it has always been. Why should we care?
Yeah.
Why should we care? And then when something happens, when there is a breakdown, when the virus re-enters and people start falling left, right, and center because they become ill again, we blame it on the government. Or the government didn't do enough. Or the government should have secured. Or the government should have done better. But the government is doing what they believe is necessary now to ensure that you and your family remain safe. But at the same time, how do we continue to let the people who we're trying to keep safe carve out a livelihood?
Yeah.
And that is no easy deal. Because you have to always, with every step and every measure that you allow to take place, have a number of checks and balances to look at. When we open up the clubs for nightlife, how would it affect the people who go there? What if a visitor who came in that was asymptomatic was there as well? What protocols do we need to put in place for contact tracing, if, God forbid, there's a case that develops? What measures do we put in place to ensure that while we try to let the restaurants and the bars and the nightclubs open so that the people who earn a living working in those establishments continue to earn that living but not become a danger to their family, will not contract the illness and bring it home to their children or their senior parents? So government has a number of checks and balances. The ministry and the officials that are placed in the position to regulate have to constantly reevaluate what they're doing and how they're doing it. And so we as individuals have to listen, have to understand, and have to also do our checks and balances. Because it's not just an open runway where you just take off and you lift off, you know. There are a number of gaps that you have to constantly stop. Look left, look right, look over your shoulder. Ensure that there's no other traffic oncoming so that you don't collide. You have to do it nationally. You have to do it by sectors. You have to do it as individuals. And so, my people, I'm pleading for us, those of us who feel that we are supermen and superwomen and nothing can affect us, nothing can happen to us. Think again. Yeah. Not just about yourself, but about the family that you have, about the children that are dependent on you, about that grandmother or that senior citizen that relies on you to go out every day, to bring bread home. But in terms of bringing bread home, you must bring it in a safe environment. And that's all the government is trying to do. It may seem to you that the government is being unjust and that the government is trying to put additional pressure. That is how it may appear. Because life as it is now is not as normal as we knew it before.
Yep.
There have been significant changes as a result of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And as a result, government has to act in such a manner to ensure that, one, we get out of the hole that we are in, but two, that we get out of it safely, not endangering the life of any citizen of the state, not endangering the livelihoods as well of people. And so gradually we will progress, but we can do it at a faster rate if more of us as citizens of the state come to that place where we would understand and accept that what is being done by government and by the various sectors is in the best interest of all Grenadians.
Guys, we are going to close at this point because, of course, you know, now is about the time that we close. And Mr. Bola, there is no better way that you can put that, no better way you can appeal to the people of Grenada. I mean, we've been doing it here day after day after day, and I would really hate that we really are waiting for something to happen before we actually stand up and say, I should. You know, don't be caught saying I should have. You know, be caught saying I did. Or I was prepared. You know, and I want to share with you on closing these two very, very, very strong points. The first one says everything you do is based on the choices you make. It's not your parents, not your past relationships, not your job, not the economy, not the weather, not an argument, not your age that is to blame. You and only you are responsible for the decision and choices that you make. And finally, before we close, I want to share with you that you would never become who you want to be if you keep blaming everyone else for who you are. Be yourself. Live at your own pace and accept your mistakes and learn, because that's life. Right? Guys, we have come to the end of our program. It is always a pleasure being here with you. Before we close quickly, I just want to share with you the fogging schedule that was provided to us for today, the 15th of September. They're going to be in Cafe Carriacou at 4 p.m. Tomorrow, Mamacan, and on Thursday, Marquee at 4
And they start at what time?
They start at 4. So, guys, you know, anybody with respiratory conditions, you want to make sure that you get them out of the area in that time, or that you secure them so that they are not affected by the fogging. But guess what? Fogging alone can't do it. Clean up your surroundings. Make sure you ain't have nothing to have a set of water in it collecting mosquito larvae and these kind of things. Do your part. We could all win this thing, if we work together. Life could be easier for a lot of us if we all just play the part and the role that we are expected to play in life. And as we said here, have some personal responsibility. Teach it to your children, So at the end of the day, something happened to you, you learn from it and you move on. You don't just stay in that position and continue to blame the world for the position that you are in. Because you are responsible, or nobody is responsible for you but you, unless you're a child. Right?
Of course.
Unless you're a child. Guys, we've come to the end of our program. As we say here every day, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe, be secure. We always want to be talking with you. We don't ever want to be talking about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report. Have a good day, everyone.
Prime Minister says cabinet changes designed to facilitate personal growth and development. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. For Monday, September 14th, 2020, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The Cabinet of Grenada has been reshuffled to reflect the government's thrust towards development and efficiency. The new and additional ministerial portfolios were announced by Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell on Sunday during an address to the nation. Dr. Mitchell highlighted the importance of ministers being versatile by managing different portfolios. The change in cabinet, he explained, is also geared towards enabling the government to become more efficient in handling the affairs of the state. We get more in this Abigail McIntyre report.
The changes being announced now will enhance our ability to ensure the continued protection of our beloved country and its people. Sisters and brothers all, it is my firm belief that one of the greatest attributes of a successful leader lies not just in his accomplishments during his period of service, but also in the decisions taken to facilitate a smooth transition to new leadership. In other words, my friends, a true leader must have a sound succession plan that adequately prepares future leaders to seamlessly take over the reins of leadership. Therefore, it was with this futuristic thinking that this cabinet reshuffle has also been considered.
Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, during an address to the nation on Sunday, effective October 1st, 2020, Minister Nicholas Steele will continue to head the Ministry of Health and Social Security. In addition, he will have the support of Minister Delma Thomas, who will work with him and have specific responsibility for hospital services within that ministry, in addition to her full responsibility as Minister for Housing, Community Development and Social Services. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Consumer Affairs will be headed by Minister Alvin Dabrio. The Ministry of Finance, Public Utilities, Energy, Physical and Economic Development will be headed by Minister Gregory Bowen. The Ministry of Infrastructure Development, Transport and Implementation will now be headed by Senator Norland Cox. Minister Oliver Joseph will head the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Business and CARICOM Affairs. Minister Peter David will head the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, Lands and Labour. The Ministry of Sports, Culture and the Arts, Cooperatives and Fisheries will be headed by Minister Yolande Bean Horsford. No changes have been made to the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Development, Information and Religious Affairs, which will continue to be headed by Minister Emmeline Pear. The Ministry of Civil Aviation and Tourism will have added with it climate resilience and the environment and will be headed by Minister Clarice Modeste Kerwin. with Senator Simon Steele as Minister with specific responsibility for climate resilience and the environment. No changes have been made to the Ministry of Legal Affairs, Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, and Local Government. It will continue to be headed by Minister Kendra Maturin-Stewart. The Department of Public Administration, Home Affairs, National Security, Youth Development, Disaster Management, and ICT will be headed by the Honorable Prime Minister. Minister Pamela Moses will lead the ministry with special responsibility for needy assistance, uniform allowance, special projects, and ICT in the Prime Minister's ministry. Minister Kate Lewis will also be in the Prime Minister's ministry with special responsibility for youth development. Finally, Senator Winston Garwe will head disaster preparedness in the Prime Minister's ministry. For the National Report, I am Abigail McIntyre.
Speedy remedial work by the Fire Department and the Ministry of Infrastructural Development has made Jones Road in Mount Morris temporarily accessible to vehicular traffic. The Ministry of Infrastructure Development on Monday collaborated with the Fire Department to clear the road of mud, which escaped from a nearby construction site. Jones Road was identified as one of the approved alternative routes for traffic through Mount Morris onto Happy Hill and the Western Main Road when the Molyneux Main Road was closed as a result of land slippage. Infrastructure Development Minister Honorable Gregory Bowen commended the team of the Fire Department for a quick response and solution to the situation.
Excavation by a private developer for a private development in the Jones Road area has caused the road to be slippery and dangerous to vehicular traffic. As an update, we advise that the fire services spent the greater part of today, Monday, power washing the surface of the Jones Road and making it acceptable and accessible to vehicular traffic. So traffic is now on the Jones Road.
However, he emphasized that if the rain continues into the night, the road will again be closed and diversion routes will be used. Minister Bowen encouraged the motorists to pay close attention to updates from the ministry or the Royal Grenada Police Force.
Should the heavy rains come again tonight, the same problem will return and the road will again be forced to be closed to vehicular traffic. So we wish to remind vehicle operators that while they are using the road this evening and possibly tonight, that they should listen for the releases even later in the night or early in the morning, and to be prepared, particularly if we are hit by showers during the night, to be prepared to use the alternative routes.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Marina Jessamy, told GIS that 2 alternative routes have been listed by the RGPF for traffic traveling from St. George's to the Western Corridor and those from the opposite direction.
All persons using the Western Main Road corridor coming from the western side as far as Sauterres, we ask you to use the Grenvilleville Road as an alternative route. Persons who are traveling from St. George's to the western side, we are advising that you will be required to divert from Mount Morris towards the Molyneux Road to connect with the Western Main Road corridor.
This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
The house was shaking. Then suddenly saw we hear bang, crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office.
A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Welcome back. The education sector in Grenada is experiencing exciting times with the introduction of e-learning devices to students at the start of the Michaelmas term. The blended learning initiative will build on the use of technology, which became a part of the daily school life as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of the 24,000 devices purchased for teachers and students, 1,550 were delivered to schools as of September 11th. Students of the Grenada Seventh-day Adventist Comprehensive and the J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School, two of the schools that have already received the devices, are confident of the far-reaching benefits, especially since technology is now a way of life.
Well, I'm happy for the tablet because it helps us get a lot of work done when we are home. You know, some of us do have gadgets, so it's a big plus for us.
So now me getting a tablet could be very helpful for me to accomplish most of my work and my SBAs and then for me to get done. So I'm willing to work more harder while I get it. I have to take care of it because I'm not too sure if I'm having it for too long, because at the end of Form 5 I know I have to return it.
First of all, it will be a great privilege so that children could have this e-learning tablet, because there are some students with no devices and that they have no means of getting on online studies and stuff. So that will be a great privilege and a good start up for them so that they can be access to the classes online and stuff. Well, there is one device, so at times I have to use it. My sister will use it, you know. So there was a bit of challenges with the amount of devices that was being available at the time.
Well, I'm very happy for the tablet indeed, because I mean, it was a struggle. Like, I didn't have devices in the first place, like to schoolwork online and stuff, you understand? But like now, because like we have the tablet, we could use it as an advantage to get our subjects and get ourselves forward.
The Grenada government and by extension the Ministry of Education have been highly commended by parents who will be part of their child's learning experience during this process.
I'm feeling happy, you know, because knowing that she have to come to school and the books she have to carry to and from the school, it was rather forceful. It was very heavy for her to carry, and she will get some ease up as she proceeds to school on a daily basis. I would say that, you know, because the children will be able to focus on the schoolwork, and knowing that they have such a device, it will keep them occupied and they will always be there learning and doing all their schoolwork and trying to do it on time.
I am feeling thankful, you know. It is a great help for the students, overall for the whole country, for them to have this special device. It's helped the parents to ease up on the spending of the books, and they have the device at home to do their work, you know, with the internet, and they could communicate with each other and do their work on it very easily. So it's a great deal, it's a great help.
Finally in the news, work resumes on Tuesday on Maras Hill Main Road. The Ministry of Infrastructure Development started remedial work on the area last year, but it was put on hold to facilitate the flow of traffic during the Christmas holidays. The ministry recently rehabilitated the Mount Parnassus Road, which will be used as a diversion route for traffic during construction of the Maras Hill Main Road. Permanent Secretary in the ministry, Marina Jessamy, says heavy equipment are already on site, with work scheduled to commence on Tuesday. The over $300,000 project will be undertaken by Sunrise Construction Company Limited over a 2-month period.
We know that this work was stopped around Christmas of 2019 to facilitate the traffic, but we used the time to rehabilitate the road at Mount Parnassus, as this is one of the major roads that will be used for traffic diversion. So at present we have equipment on site. We know that we have a weather system for the upcoming days, so we do watch that very carefully. But I want to inform that heavy equipment is already mobilized, and we hope to do the excavation from tomorrow. I would like to say thank you to the Chief Technical Officer, Ms. Andal, and her team, especially Mr. Peter Charles and his team, in facilitating this project, and we do believe that this project will be implemented on time. The expected duration is 2 months, and we're working very closely with the contractor to deliver on this project.
More than 30 individuals will be employed during the 2-month period. That story just ended the national report for Monday, September 14th. Let's recap the top story. Prime Minister says cabinet changes designed to facilitate personal growth and development. On behalf of the entire news and production team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.